Hello there and welcome to this vlog of August 2024. This video is going to be slightly rambly, I think, which if you are used to watching me, that will be nothing new. I do love a good ramble, especially on these talking head vlogs that I do. So I'm not apologising for it. It's just it may be a bit more rambly than usual, because I don't have any notes. Just kind of want to speak from the hip here. So few people have reached out to me over the last few weeks just to ask where I was, basically, because I've obviously not dropped a video now in weeks, and you'll have seen as well, like when I was for basically like over 2 years, I was like religiously posting every year. It was like lots of law content, and I've spoken about this on the last few videos that I've done, but I've kind of just been waiting for the Kickstarter because all my plans are orientated to the Kickstarter. So to answer the question of people reaching out to me, no, I haven't disappeared, but I do now have concerns about the Kickstarter, which I will go into on this vlog, and how that's kind of impacted on what I'm trying to do here, or what I had planned to do, and why I kind of flatly refuse to reorientate myself because of the delay, basically. So let's talk about the Kickstarter first, because I'll probably put that in the title heading. I will caveat this though by saying, and you'll know this if you know me, that I proudly am one of the non-grifters on the negative front when it comes to YouTube content. I despise that. I despise the grifting classes that just market negativity and anger and angst and hatred. So I am not that. So if you want that content, and they certainly won't be getting a plug on my channel, but you know who to go and watch in our community. As far as I'm concerned, they are mediocre. The people that follow them are mediocre, and they're just all part of the same grift, right? So I've got no interest in giving any time or promotion to those people, and that's not what I'm doing here. I think if you go back and watch any of my content, I always try to keep it fair and balanced, but even then on the more positive side most of the time, because I just feel like we have a duty as a species not to fall into these negativity traps. People that do end up utterly miserable. Like the people that create this negative content, you think they're having a happy time in their life. You look at these people and think that they are, somehow joyous and full of the, the goodness of spring. No, they're rotten to the core. And if you get into their slipstream, you'll go rotten to the core as well. So be warned. So again, I always plug and try to promote the more wholesome aspects of the community, of which there are a ton, and there are lots of goodwill people across the community who will try to not spin things in a positive light, but just try to keep positive. So I just want to make that very clear before I even discuss this, because this isn't some kind of grift switch or something like that. Yeah, that's never going to happen with me. But the Kickstarter. I'm recording this the end of August, or towards the end of August. We were due to get it in June. I've always said, literally since last year, I was like, I don't think this is going to get to us in June. I was hopeful it would, but I was always very much of the mind of, we probably won't get it until the back end of the year, autumn, fall for Americans, into the back end of the year. And I was fine with that. I always have been fine with that. I always, you always expect, or, hope for the best, but plan for the worst, right? And I always knew, it might be that I'd have to take a slight sabbatical from the channel if things were delayed, because I had so much of my content tied up to this, which I'll talk about separately. What I want to discuss, though, today is what I feel is an intrinsic problem with the Kickstarter, and that's why I really want to put that caveat on this before by saying I'm not doing this to kind of generate heat. I've kind of expressed my, a few negative opinions about CGL in the past, about what I feel is a really ineffective comm strategy, and I will openly talk about my working career. I am in comms. I'm at a very high level of comms. I work in professional services within comms and PR. I know that world very well. I know what looks good. I know what looks bad. And Catalyst is bad at this, right? There's just no way to hide that. I think I've said that openly multiple times, but until they get a handle on that, they are never ever going to be able to fulfill what I think is the potential of one of the, obviously, because I would say this because I'm a big fanboy, but one of the greatest gaming IPs ever to grace humanity. And we all know and love BattleTech because you're here watching one of the smaller channels, so I think you'd echo that sentiment. Where I've got concerns that are outside of the comms, and this is pure speculation on my part, so I have got no evidence of this. No one's come to me and said anything about this, but I get the impression that they have had an issue with stock. I'm saying that because the comms have just gone dead. I think they've done basically 2 posts in the last 6 to 7, 8 weeks. I've not counted, but I see it on my email, right? When Catalyst release an update on the Kickstarter, I get a prompt for that, and then I can obviously go and read it. The last one that we got was saying, "Oh, we're going to update you on this, but we're just back from Gen Con," and fine. That was some weeks ago now, and we've still not heard anything. And I get the impression, although I've kind of distanced myself a little bit because I've not done videos, so I've not really spoken to that many people other than people that have reached out to me personally. From what I have seen, I get the impression that there is a growing anger at the lack of transparency and the perceived issue. And I can tell you now, as someone who works in communications, that if you do not fill the space, the narrative, control the narrative, somebody else will fill it for you. And that's exactly what's happening here. Lots of rumours are going around that, whatever came from the factories in China, they didn't have enough to kind of fulfill the orders, so it could be a problem now. A lot of people are going to have to wait a lot longer for the Kickstarter. They either come out and tell us what is going on, or this is going to be pretty catastrophic for Catalyst. Again, I can't sugarcoat that because I have worked on what in my industry we call crisis comms, and how important it is to kind of control the narrative. And if no one at their side is willing or able to control the narrative because the narrative for them would be perceived as bad, then they've got a major problem, because what will fill that gap is disinformation, mistruth, people with their own agendas. That's why I was so explicit about giving that caveat that I'm not doing this as some kind of negative retort. I have a hell of a lot of respect and time for the people at Catalyst. They've completely transformed tabletop BattleTech over the last 5 years. They're doing phenomenal work. Unfortunately, though, I feel like there are certain and clear and obvious problems within that structure that they just don't have a handle on. Whether that's logistics, and I think there probably is a logistical issue here. I mean, we got told last year that the majority of the plastic was done, and it's all going to get put on the literally the slow boat from China, and then it will all be ready to go. I get the impression, again, I've got no evidence of this, and this is where Catalyst desperately need to come out and tell us what's going on. If they have kind of got to these hubs, these delivery hubs, and the delivery hubs have now called Catalyst up and say, we've only got 70% of the stock here, what then happens, right? First thing you've got to do is control the communications. They're going to take heat whatever happens, right? You're going to have people threatening all kinds of things, from pretty, I suppose, low-level stuff, I'll never buy a Kickstarter from you again, right? Okay. That's somebody's choice. Obviously, it's their money. They can do what the hell they want. To people talking about bringing, collective legal action, which, again, you all know as well, if you watch me, that I work in legal comms. I'm not a lawyer, very important to specify, but I do have a legal background, and I've worked in and around some of the best lawyers on earth for my entire career. I think the way that the Kickstarters are set up is that you literally cannot take legal action, right? Like, I know I hear that bandied around a lot. Like, if you go onto the Kickstarter page and you kind of look down the comments, you always get someone who's like, I'm going to take you to court. And I kind of am like, go and consult a lawyer about that before you start like spamming the comments page, because you're really making yourself look like an idiot. Especially when it's like not a burner account, it's like someone's real name. I'm like, oh dear, how embarrassing. Just because like the way that Kickstarters exist, it's a promise, right? Like it's a promissory note, which, if you don't know, is what the entire monetary system is built on. If you read, I mean, I don't know how it is in every country, but most like notes will say something along the lines of, this is a promissory note to pay the bearer X amount of money, right? So if I hand someone over a £20 note, it's a promissory note. The kind of same thing exists on when it comes to the Kickstarter. It's a, we will give you money on the promise that you are going to give us something, but the contract there is not like a contract that you have like when you're exchanging on a property, or you're buying a new car, or whatever else, or you buy something off Amazon and you kind of get the you obviously when you, it's all done in the back end, but all the kind of terms and conditions with Amazon will be there if you're kind of buying it through third parties. The Kickstarter is even more kind of watery than that, because you're basically saying to a company, I'm going to give you money on the chance that you're going to give me this really nice thing that I want, and I'm going to kind of give you the money up front to do it as like an investor. That's kind of what you are. And if you give it, great. If you don't then meet the criteria, then I get my money back. But even if you get my money and you do it and it fails, that's kind of, it's, give a gaming analogy, it's the rolling of the dice, right? Now, so again, I think we've got to be very adult and sensible about what we think and what we say on these platforms in regards like, making some spurious accusation of like legal threat when I don't think it exists. Also, as well, and this is really important, that was kind of a sidetrack there, the most important thing is, we will all get the Kickstarter, right? Like, don't worry about it too much. It might take another year. I mean, I'm not joking. It could be quite dramatic, but they will fulfill the Kickstarter. They can't afford not to. It will lead to a hell of a lot of angry people. It will lead to a lot of resentment and a lot of disappointment, but they will still fulfill the Kickstarter. They're a serious company. They're backed up by serious companies. They've got money behind them. What they don't want to do, obviously, is to have the level of reputational damage that really kind of impacts on their future ability to do business. And honestly, and I go back to the communications point, if they don't control that narrative tightly, where, again, speaking with my like comms hat on here, you need to show your customer base that you're on their side, right? So if something does go catastrophically wrong, you're always going to get a percentile of people who are going to just give you heat regardless. You've got to accept that. It's humanity, right? But the majority of people will be like, well, as long as I know, I can kind of get on with my life and go and do something else. And yeah, I'm disappointed, but whatever. That's definitely the bracket I'm in. And I think I speak for probably the silent majority in BattleTech who don't have YouTube channels, who are not out there, creating angst and anger and hatred, and or on the other side, like really simping and being like far too forgiving of what a company does. Like I feel like I try to kind of keep some kind of equilibrium here, backed up by evidence. And if I don't have evidence, like I don't have today, I'm willing to tell you I've got no evidence for this. This is just a gut feeling that I've got in terms of them closing the communications down, while like seeing this very weird model that they've got of like fulfilling Kickstarters like a bunch at a time. Like, like they'll say, oh, we've done X amount of thousand of the US stuff. Right, well that's fantastic, but you've also got like 5,000 to 6,000 whatever it is orders in the international market, and you're not giving us any Intel, and because I'm in that international market, I feel like I have every right to be like, you need to tell us what's going on here, right? Like if there is a major problem with whatever it is, European distribution or a certain country or Australian distribution, just tell people. Just say this is the update that we've got. Um, we are really, really sorry. This has been a problem at our end and at the end of another third party or whatever. They don't have to bury people, take responsibility for it. They took our money after all for the Kickstarter, so they've got a duty then to kind of take the responsibility for it, which they are doing. I just think that it's so cloak and dagger there. And it is, I know someone who's, I'm not going to mention any names, but I do know someone who is close to Catalyst and who's very supportive of them and likes them. This isn't someone who's like gossipy or nasty or anything. But I remember once asking this person about the structure there, because I framed it, this is how I framed it. I felt that they had a very military type structure within their hierarchy, which I suppose would kind of make sense, because I think some of their staffers are from like military backgrounds. And when I said that to this person, they were like, that's exactly the problem. Like, I think I'd articulated it in a way where they were like, oh my God, that's exactly it. Like, they run a very, very, like, in a way which is good. They run a tight ship as a hierarchy, because it's good that everyone in the business knows where they stand. But does that then cause a certain, like, fear factor or a certain, like, lack of responsibility for just being able to kind of adapt to a situation or get someone in your business to kind of just be honest and frank about it, because you don't want to be kind of seen as operating outside of the hierarchical lines. I've seen that in businesses a few times. I used to work for a firm, I'm not going to mention any names, but I did used to work for a very big law firm several years ago where that was absolutely the case, and it really kind of drove a lot of good people out, because you always felt like no matter what the company were doing, like I should be trusted enough as a intelligent, educated person who understands the sector that I should be able to just go and make executive decisions. I don't need someone in a mid-managerial position to give me permission, right? Like, if you can't trust me, don't employ me, right? And I feel here like, I don't know if they're kind of, maybe they're having those discussions, I'm sure they're having those discussions internally about what to do, but someone there needs to kind of grab the bull by the horns and be like, no, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. For better or for worse, we need to kind of get this communication out there. We need to control that narrative. And we all need to be adult about this. We all need to accept that we're going to take a lot of heat. We are going to get a lot of hate mail. There's going to be people on spurious platforms directing heat at us. But let's counter that. Let's just be open about it and say, look, this thing has happened. We are trying everything we can to rectify this. They kind of did that on the last Kickstarter. I remember there was I can't remember the details on it, but there was an issue where Catalyst had to kind of step in and pay a lot of money. It was like, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think it was, to rectify a problem with something that had gone on in the shipping. And they were very open about it. They just came out and said, look, this has cost us a lot of money, but we fixed it, right? And we don't want to pass that cost on. Which I wouldn't expect them to do, right? Like if a company came out and said, look, we really don't want to destroy our profit margin because of this, so we know we're sorry, but if this is going to be a viable project to build up on the next project, you have to be patient with us. I don't expect them to kind of throw money at issues that are outside of their control. Maybe some of this, if this isn't their issue as well, like maybe there is a legal element to this where a third party have messed up. I mean, for all we know, you could have a situation like the people making the plastics have only delivered a certain percentile of the product or whatever it is, and now they can't say anything because they're hamstrung by lawyers. That could also be a thing, and if that's the case, then we've just got to kind of sit and wait to see what happens, because it could be that litigation takes place. Again, I've got no evidence for that. It's just I'm seeing the lack of communication, and I'm seeing the way that the community is starting to turn a little bit and become overtly negative to this, which when we were promised this, I say promise again, promise with a very small p, when they said June initially, which I was very, very doubtful of. As soon as they said June, I remember thinking, that's going to come back and sting them. Like, there's no way on earth I would have given a date for this, given how big it was as well, and they were clearly shocked how many orders were put in. I probably would have, if I were them, I would have said, We are looking towards the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. I think I'd have said something like that. And then I'd have kind of constructed the comms around that to say, because we just can't be sure. This is an unprecedentedly large order. We do have a good network in place, but we're not going to give dates on it because we feel like that will be disingenuous. Instead, they decided to say June. Really, that has come back to bite them in the backside because everyone's kind of hanging their hat on that now. Again, I look at it from a... If I was advising them as a communications consultant and we were talking about exactly what we were going to do on this, that would be my first thing. No dates. Do not give dates. Especially when you're outside of a project that you've never done on that kind of size, which they haven't. You know, the Clan Invasion Kickstarter was big. This is like, what, 3 times as big as that? Maybe not in terms of like the amount of plastic, because I think they actually did more plastic for the Clan Invasion, but certainly in terms of the amount of deliveries that they've got has gone up like exponentially on the last Kickstarter. And the problem is, this is the real tragedy here, like a lot of those people that went and then signed up to it will be newish fans to the franchise who are now going to get stung and have a negative experience on the Kickstarter, which is just terrible for everyone. Again, so much of this can be mitigated by having a really kind of strong communication plan and going back to the well on the communication plan, like every time an issue arises and getting in front of it. You know there's a stock issue, for instance, tell people that early, right? You tell them like a month in advance, we might have some issues here with stock. So we're going to have to make some really hard decisions. We'd ask that everyone, you know, please be patient. We're going to do our best to rectify all this. Hopefully it won't cause major delays, but there may be some issues across the board. So we've got some tough decisions to make in terms of who gets this. I will speak as a turkey voting for Christmas here, right? If I were them, I'd actually fulfill all the small orders first. I've said this before, I think, on the channel. I spent thousands of dollars on the Kickstarter. I'm a BattleTech fanatic, right? I run a YouTube channel. I'm on one of the big like podcasts or vodcasts for BattleTech. You know, if it's BattleTech related, I'll buy it, right? And I'm not a salty person. And I think a lot of people who are, you know, this is going to sound so like, you know, like I'm resorting this down to its most minimal component, but if you are relatively successful in your life and you're not a bitter, twisted, hateful individual, you can kind of take things in your stride. And I'm going to guess that if you're happy to spend like a couple of $1,000 on a Kickstarter, you've obviously got money and you've obviously had some level of success in your life. So we probably don't worry. I've got other things to be worried about, right? Like real things, real world things, career things, family things, right? Like I'm not sat up at night thinking about this Kickstarter. As much as I love BattleTech, I'm doing, this is why I run this channel. It's like my little BattleTech therapy group, right? So I can say all this now and then I close myself off for it and get on with my life. So I think you've got that, you probably have that like audience member in the kind of top echelon spend who are probably going to be more like, whatever. Or, you know, yeah, I've seen this all before. I've been part of this like IP for years. I've seen them mess up before. It's fine, right? When you're talking about like the lower level orders, and again, this, I don't mean this is in a snobby way, but you've got people there who have spent more of their disposable income on this, or are more casual fans. Because a casual fan is probably just going to be like, yeah, I'll just get the company level, you know, $100, and then they've maybe got my kind of attitude to it, which is whatever. The people though that are like spending, like save up for potentially months and be like, oh my god, I can't wait to get this Kickstarter. Their levels of investment on this, because it's a higher level of their disposable income, obviously there's a more cutting level for that if they're not getting what they expect. That's why I'd fulfill those orders first, right? Like for me, I'm just thinking about this on a bit of a cerebral psychological level. That would be how I'd view it. I think what Games Workshop called whale customers, so like the ginormous big beasts in the ocean who talk about it a lot and are usually quite positive about it and spend a lot of money on it. We don't need to be satisfied. There's plenty of plankton for us, right? If you want to put it that way. But I really, really worry about the casual fans who have kind of come into BattleTech who are now going to have a negative experience on this, because That's what drives people away. That's when you get people who just turn around and say, I'm never backing anything that they do again. I'm not going to buy their products anymore. And it's not out of some like vindictiveness. It's not because of weird, spurious political reasons that the weirdo grifter haters come up with. It's because they've had a bad customer experience. And that, everyone is entitled to that, right? If you earn money and then spend your money on a product and don't get what you want, or you get bad service, absolutely your inherent right within our system to turn around and say, fine, I'm never buying this again, right? If you deny somebody that, you deny the entire system that we operate under, right? And I am a unashamed capitalist, right? I mean, I work in corporate comms for law firms. Of course I am. The system has benefited me. I'm acutely aware the system doesn't benefit anyone. Sorry, it doesn't benefit everybody. But it would be massively hypocritical for me to start taking a line contrary to that, given what I work in. But, people who just have, like, say, normal jobs that pay, like, normal incomes, who then have to save more of their money to get the treats in their life, like the Kickstarter, they're the people that I really feel for. They're the ones where I'm like, I don't want them to have a bad experience, right? Like, I want them to kind of get what they need. Like, I can, again, look at the shelving behind me. You can see a lot of that is black, right? So it's just all undercoated. So I've got tons to be getting on with, as well as a career job, as well as managing properties, right? Like, I don't need added complexity in my life necessarily. So, like, the Kickstarter gets delayed, I'm fine with that. And I know a lot of people feel that way as well. Again, if you don't, it's your right to feel aggrieved. I'm not going to put it any other way. My only thing is, like, I can tell a grifter, right? I can tell if someone's upset about this because of other reasons, let's just say that, then I'll be able to tell. Whereas people who are like, yeah, I've had a bad customer experience, I'm not engaging anymore. It's a different kettle of fish. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Bit of a downer, I know. Who knows when we're going to get it? I mean, I could put this video out, and we could get a massive news drop over the next 24 hours. Hope that happens. Where they just give an update on the amount of orders or what they do, especially what they're doing on the international market, because we just feel completely in the dark now on the international front. I mean, I don't even know if they're in the hubs. I think they are, but no, as far as I'm aware, and I know a lot of people in the UK BattleTech scene, nobody has got their order yet. Guessing same for Australians as well. I know a lot of Australians and Australians are very vocal, right? That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. And they'll be like, I guarantee, go look at the comments, you'll find multiple Aussies going like, I haven't got my order yet, right? So, yeah, and I can say that from the UK side, like, pretty sure no one has got the order here. I'm pretty sure I would have heard something. So we keep hoping that this isn't a complete catastrophe, and that Catalyst can get a handle on the comms. How then does that impact on the channel? And I've spoke about this a little bit of length over the last few videos, but my entire calendar of what I wanted to do over the next 6 months was tied into the Kickstarter. So. And I'll tell you now, I mean, as most people do who are project managerial focused and a bit geeky, I've got like an Excel sheet of episodes that I want to record, timings, like when I can record it, when I can do it. I planned all this out way in advance, basically planned it all at the beginning of the year, then got the house that I'm living in currently, I had a big redevelopment on the house and a big extension made. Created a bit of a studio in the extension where I can do much more kind of like interactive recordings. My intention then was to kind of get the Kickstarter and do the unboxing down there. Given that we could be anywhere between 4 weeks and 4 months away from getting the Kickstarter, I feel like I've kind of got to restructure things a little bit, but I'm really not willing to go and replan everything, because my intention was, and I'll tell you now, because this is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to focus in on certain powers across the BattleTech universe. So, for instance, and you can kind of see some of this on the shelving behind me, I really wanted to kind of, let's take like the, which force do I know best? Let's say something like Karita, right? I'm not a Karitan player, but I know Karitan law and forces quite well. I have like a core Cretan force, core Draconis combined force, two companies basically, all in the kind of red and black, all with the Cretan logo on there and everything else. They are kind of the core force. So if I'm running a Cretan force, I can kind of cherry pick from that. All the mechs in there, or the units in there, are all taken from master unit lists, so it's all official. I don't really put any salvage points in there. So, for instance, you're not going to see an enforcer in that particular force. It's going to be dragons, Jenners, panthers, and then I kind of have different era techs as well. So I've got mechs in there like I think the Tesson, which is a Civil War era Cretan mech. All the kind of the mechs that we know and love in Korea, the ones with the swords, and they're very like Japanese focused and looking. So that's kind of, I have a core force, and my intention was on recording was to kind of showcase that force down in the studio, and then show all the aligned forces that I've got that sit alongside this. So, for instance, I've got like a Deneb force. I've got the Sword of Light force. I've got I've got a few. I've got like 4 or 5 different like specific units for Karita, including like things like Ryakingo, which is almost like I suppose like a semi-mercenary unit that are kind of attached to Karita, but it's kind of Teddy Karita's gig from the War of 3039. And all these like forces then kind of sit alongside it, but they're either painted up in a particular scheme. So like Ryakingo, for instance, have got like a dark blue and a light blue hue on the painting scheme, so that's what I've done. I've put all the I can't remember what you call it. It's got a specific name. The little samurai flag on the back of mechs. I basically made them myself, and they look pretty cool actually. And put them on the back of Ryakingo, all with like the Karita emblem, and I've got I got Defiance Industries as well out in Europe to make me some Ryakingo logos. So it's all very very law correct, basically. And my intention was to kind of showcase like how to run a Karitan force where you can just cherry pick from them very easily. And if you say for instance, like say Ryakingo, the Ryakingo force has got a lot of Davian salvage in there, so you will find mechs in there that are associated with the Davians because they've been up against the Davians, fighting the Davians, and stolen their mechs. And that's how I like to do it. So it's not like, you're playing Karita, you've got to play with dragons and panthers and Jenners. Don't do that. It's like, that's important you've got that core force, but it could be that you get an enforcer on the Draconis Combine force, because there's absolutely going to be enforcers available to the Karitans in that time. And I wanted to do that when I get the Kickstarter through and I'm basically able to go and complete all the forces that I have. Still got a ton to paint, but I could just do it over like a 6 to 12 month period. So I could be like, right, this is a Lyran force. So I've got the core Lyran force, then all the attached areas, and then here are the mercenary units. And I can do that down in the studio. At the moment, I can't do that because I've got about, like in terms of Lyrans, for instance, I think I've got the entire Lyran core force set up, so 2 companies. I have got several. I think I've got like the Donegal Guards. I think I've got about half of them painted. Got a few other like Lyran forces as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. They're all at the back there. And then I would like, be able to do the Lyran one, do the Capellan one, do the Karitan one. And it was going to keep me in like videos for months and months. Instead now, I can't do that because I can't showcase something that, as a military term, marches on paper, right? So this is something that exists in my Excel sheet, doesn't yet exist in reality, or only 60% of it exists. And I'm not going to do a video, on like how to create Lyran forces where you've got like maybe a battalion level of, or more than that really, maybe a couple of battalions level of mechs and vehicles. But but don't worry about it because 40% of it marches on paper. The only kind of force that I could realistically do that with at the moment are a couple of like battalions within the Dust Counters. And to be honest with you, the Dust Counters is my baby. That's my like in-universe mercenary group. So no one really cares about that outside of me. I'll show that eventually. Like eventually, when it's all painted, I will show the Dust Counters regiment because, believe you me, it will be cool. It's already cool. I mean, it's already like 3 battalions worth. But I've got another couple of battalions to go before it's all finished, and that's all coming in the Kickstarter. Oh, well, the vast majority. There's a couple of things that won't be completed for another couple of years because I'm waiting on the other units to come out. But that's kind of like wrecked all my plans, right? Because now I'm kind of sat here like, well, and I was going to tie that into lore as well. So I might do like a Lyran month where I do my Lyran forces. Then I'd talk about I'd do lore on one of the like random units that I'd got, or why I find them interesting, or how it ties into this certain period of time. And again, I've got it all kind of catalogued in my Excel sheet. And I think that would have been quite interesting because it would have given a theoretical depth to the practical force that I'd actually created. And I think, as BattleTech fans, we're interested in stuff like that, right? We're interested in the lore side of it. We're interested in the tabletop side of it. And I can't do it. So that's why if this feels like a low energy video, it's because I'm at a really low energy point on BattleTech at the moment because I've got very little to do. There are some ideas that I've had, like I could finish the campaign operations book, but that's really kind of an academic piece, right? And I need to feel galvanized to do that. One thing that I am planning on doing, so I expect this probably in September sometime, I have actually collected now 2 companies of the Wilson Hussars, and I've got the decals coming from Defiance for the Wilson Hussars. That I might, if I can sort this out, I'm gonna rather than doing the unboxing as my first video for the Kickstarter, which again could be months away, I'm going to go down and test the new studio doing the Wilson Hussars. So I'll do what I was planning on doing for like the forces, but just for the Wilsons, because the Wilson Hussars are one of my favourite forces in BattleTech, and certainly get me excited for BattleTech because they are one of the the OG mercenary forces that I love, and I think a lot of people do love them. And I think it's nice to. And I basically as well, I've gone and got loads of old metal models for that. So I think there's a couple of lances of old metal models, and I've basically just done the entire. Well, I've got it here actually. The entire force. Where are we? Somewhere at the back here. So this is the personnel roster for the Wilson Hussars, and I'm doing that in its entirety, if that focuses in. So yeah, that should be pretty cool. Another thing that I'm doing as well, so we're going to have a Wilson Hussars focus channel for the duration. I'm actually playing through MechWarrior 5 at the moment as the Wilson Hussars. Making the Wilson Hussars great again is what I'm going to call it, because they're nefariously like one of the worst mercenary outfits in the Inner Sphere. And I'm playing through the actual like core game and recording a lot of it before the clan invasion. It's not DLC, is it? I think it's effective. It's going to be badged as MechWarrior 5, but it's effectively a new game. I'm well into that now. I think I'm like halfway through the campaign. So instead of me like doing random lore videos that I really want to tie in together with the Kickstarter and what I'm doing on that focus, I might actually just do the Wilson Hussars video, show the force, and then like I'll start dropping in the MechWarrior 5 playthrough. I am not like a amazing MechWarrior player. I know there are some people out there who are real hotshots at it because I play on stick. So I play the old-fashioned way, which means you can never be as good as someone who plays with like mouse and keyboard. But I think it's I kind of like doing those because I'm able to kind of talk a lot about the lore, and the Wilson Hussars really fun anyway. And all the I've got the pilot editor mod, so I've gone in there and kind of created all the Wilson Hussars like OG unit. And it's just fun to watch because then like you'll see I lose mech warriors along the way, so I lose some of the the original team who get killed as we're playing through it. So you will see content from me, but it's not going to be anything like it was previously until I get the Kickstarter, which again I can't even put a prediction on this now. I mean, it could be a month, it could be a year, honestly. I mean, I've just got no idea. Until Catalyst come out with the comms, then I'm just going to get on with my life, to be honest. I would say one thing, though, final thought. Please don't go down the conspiracy rabbit holes with this of like, oh, they've fleeced us and we're not going to get our product. And like, it's so tiresome. You've got better things to be thinking about. Don't worry about it too much. Yes, it's disappointing, but the sun will still rise tomorrow. Your life will still continue, and you can still be happy. You don't have to be consumed by misery and negativity and bad feeling. I guarantee to you, Catalyst are worried about this. They're trying to do everything they can on it. Yes, they make mistakes. Yes, I'm critical of them on certain areas of what they are doing or not doing. But please, when you're spamming the comments here and saying, oh, they're running away with my money. Oh, no, they are not. They are a professional outfit. They've got higher gods to appeal as well, like the gods of tops and fanatics. So that ain't going to happen. So just please be an adult about it. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking this. My community on here, again, you have every right to be like, I'm really disappointed. I'm upset at them. I'm disappointed as well, but that's as far as it goes. It's a game after all. It's not like you are awaiting an insulin shipment or something. That's when life gets real, right? This is a game that you play on tabletop. So, again, just try to put that into perspective and enjoy yourself and have a smile on your face and go out and earn money and have fun. All those good things in life. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there. So it's been quite a long, ranty video, this. So you may not have made it to the end. If you did, well done. Right, so I don't know when I'm going to be back. Will be sometime soon. Eventually I'm going to do the Wilson's Hussars. So, yeah, hurrah for the Hussars. Right, I'll thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.